Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody, to the City of Farmers Branch City Council study session for Tuesday, December 9th. Our first order of business this afternoon are public comments on study session items. I do not have anybody signed up to speak this afternoon, so we'll move right into our regular agenda. Item C1, which is review and discuss consent and regular agenda items. I'll start my left with Councilwoman Gonzalez. Okay. Councilman Bennett? Councilman Reed? Councilwoman Villafranca?
Nothing, thank you.
Councilman Neal?
No, sir, thank you.
Very good. Moving on, item C2, discuss the Sister City program and costs associated with potential future expansion.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. Darren Harris, Deputy Director of Economic Development. Today, I have the pleasure of giving you the update on the Sister City program and the future expansion that we're looking to do with these cities. The purpose of the program is to evaluate the current Sister City relationships and to evaluate the reactivation and expansion opportunities and make sure that we follow the mission value and vision of the city. When we look at the overall travel costs, we looked at three major cities. We looked at Mexico City, South Korea, and then we looked at Taiwan. These are based on a 4-person delegation on a 10-day travel, and we chose the lowest possible cost for flight and for ground transportation. And looking at Mexico City, it came in at $2,088. Looking at South Korea, it came in at $5,046. And with Taiwan, it came in at $5,500. To your right, I created a travel matrix that we should follow should we choose any of the future expansion cities. And looking at business recruitment potential, we should look at having 3 or more confirmed leads going to any of the cities, 1 or more confirmed diplomatic or government leads, 1 or more higher education or workforce leads, and the supply chain is optional. And then the sister city relationships we're still trying to build or acquire because these are future expansion cities. When we look at the benefit indicators and expected outcomes, for Mexico City, it's moderate only because we already have the Hispanic population established here, and we have a lot of the corporate headquarters established in the DFW area. 35% of the headquarters that are established here are of Hispanic descent. And when we look at Seoul, Korea, we also have some business and corporate headquarters already established here. And Taiwan will be high because we're looking to establish more Taiwanese business in the Farmers Branch area. When we look at foreign direct investment, the potential is emerging again for Mexico City because of the strong presence we have here. It'd also be strong for Seoul, Korea, and strong for Taiwan as well because of the presence that we already have here with each one of the cities. When we look at workforce and higher education collaboration, that would be stronger, that would be high across the board just because of the student exchange programs that we have here in our city and with the job programs that we're trying to create for the different companies that are here. When we look at supply chain, technology, and innovation alignment, Mexico City, again, would be moderate because of the strong presence that we have here with them already. And it will be high for Seoul, South Korea, and strong for Taiwan. Looking at the sister city relationships and the strengthening, all of these will be exploratory right now because we're looking to expand into those cities. And lastly, when we look at the travel cost efficiency, Mexico City will be the highest because of the lowest cost that we have for the travel to that city. Seoul will be moderate because of second, and Taiwan will be last because of the high cost to travel to Taiwan. I wanted to point out that the mayor had requested me to come back with the information for the Korean population, and I just wanted to show him that it was found on Nielsburg here. If I can get it to open. Okay. Okay. So if you scroll down here, you'll see that it not only showed Farmers Branch, but it also showed our neighboring cities, and this is where I got the information from, Mayor. And it shows that we have 399, or 1.1% of our total population, and we're just over 4% of the Dallas County population. You go back. And now if we look at the recommendation summary, all three cities will hold strong long-term economic and cultural value, but we should not proceed unless we have the justified investments made, like the matrix that I showed you, and that we have, and also looking at the alignment that we should have with recruitment, workforce, development of trade, and strengthening of the sister city and governmental relationships. Looking at our former sister city liaisons, that was Bronson Blackson, who was a former city councilman, and Rachel Johnson, who was a current city staff member. And at the request of the mayor, we did reach out to the other state representatives and congressional offices. The only one that we will not hear a response back from is Julie Johnson, because she said that her current workload is not taking any more calls or any emails from constituents. So next steps will be to reactivate the Sister City program with the existing locations, select a new liaison, and consider the former expansion to Mexico, South Korea, or Taiwan. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions or discussions that you would like to have with the program.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Councilwoman Gonzalez?
Not a question, more just like a statement. I would like to see us bring back that program. I had the pleasure of going to Garbson in 2017 when I was in high school, a part of an exchange program. So I thought it was a beautiful city. And then we had the pleasure of going again in 2013 while my husband was in the military. So I'd really like to see that just so we connect with the cultural standpoint, especially if we're going to be doing events like the Globe Life. I think it'd be great to have them and to explore that option again.
Okay.
Councilwoman Bennett? Councilman Reed?
Okay. Just clarification on the funding. Do we budget 20,000 per year?
Correct.
Okay, and then the expectation is the visiting is once every 5 years?
Correct.
Okay. And could you go back to the cost slide, please? Okay, so we'd be looking, if we're going to have 3 cities, if we're going to maintain 3 cities,
We would have to increase the budget.
right. Okay, currently, what benefits do we get from the Sister City program?
Just a cultural relationship right now. There's no economic benefits right now. If you were looking for economic benefits, there's no economic benefits right now.
Okay, and the other question, and it's just thinking off the top of my head, it's for us to ponder is, does it make sense to target just a specific city for, if we're going to be looking at from an economic standpoint, targeting just a specific city, or should we be targeting businesses within an area?
We can look at whatever city's council chooses. These were just cities that were,
Right, so my point is, does it make sense to just target 3 cities and have the sister city program, or just look at it as more of a, well, you know, not being at such a micro level, but looking at more of a macro level for areas, especially if we're going to be, I would assume our hope is to build some sort of economic relationship with these areas. You know, and I'm not looking for an answer from you. It's
Okay.
just, I'm just throwing that out there as a point of consideration.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Villafranca?
Thank you so much for, this was a lot of research that you did. I really appreciate that. I think that it would be really important for us to continue the Sister City program, and I really would like for us to think about maybe starting with one. And I think Mexico City just seems like the most logical at this time. I have been in communication with the Consulate of Mexico, and they seemed really excited. I really would want it to be much more than cultural experience. I definitely would want to bring economic development. There are a lot of companies from Mexico that are actually here in North Texas, and wooing them to Farmers Branch certainly would be one of my goals.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I too am in favor of the program. However, I just wonder if we have reached out to the current sister cities. Have we heard any feedback or input from them, been in touch with them, heard from them?
We get,
I don't know if they want to continue, or are we discussing now about terminating those and establishing new?
well, we haven't
New city
talked
with-
about termination with them because we're getting gifts from them to put in our libraries, and we're having constant
Sure, okay.
talks with them still. So
Yeah,
They're
maybe
still
we
looking
could reach
for us.
out just to have a handshake. And I mean, I know things have changed since COVID, and
Right.
probably wouldn't be too hurtful to at least be in touch with them. But yeah, I'm pretty much in favor of this, not only from a cultural perspective, but I think we ought to have some directions regarding bringing some economic benefits, not only to our city, but to our sister city as well. So I'd like to see whatever those points might be and how we could achieve those.
okay.
That's all. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just have a couple of comments, general comments on this. Currently, we have Sister City program, which is more cultural exchange than any business or economic development exchange. And so when looking at that, there are a number of issues associated with each one. Culture exchange, I think in the past, folks have gone, stayed in people's homes, host family homes, whereas if you're there on a business development trip, you're going to be staying in a hotel.
Correct.
So I think the council needs to decide, not tonight, but future discussion is, what are they looking for? And what are the benefits that they want to bring back to the city? It's my belief that if we're going to spend any taxpayer money on, traveling like this, that I would like to see it in the direction of business development, economic development, something that's going to support business coming to Farmers Branch, coming to our city. And I think Mexico in general, I'm not going to speak to Mexico City, but Mexico in general makes the most sense for our city because we're a majority Hispanic city, and there are many people there. There are many people here who have business relationships with companies in Mexico already. So I think we would need to do our proper business research on what we have here in Farmers Branch, what businesses are located here already, and is there an opportunity to grow those business? Or for those businesses that are here, can they connect us to new and other business that could be ripe for expansion into the United States through the city of Farmers Branch? So that's the way I'm trying to view this whole thing. I don't want to just send people on a vacation. You know, I think we need to show results, return on investment for our dollars that we spend. I will say the Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce is located in Farmers Branch. They last year had a business development trip that the mayor of Plano went on, and 6 companies ended up signing letters of intent to open offices in Plano as a result of that trip. So I know it can work, and I think it benefits us to have a couple of council members who are very fluent in Spanish, maybe more than two, and so, and they have connections there already. So I just see that as maybe our next logical extension of whichever way we're trying to go. If it's cultural, that's fine, but my leaning is more towards the business development side of things.
Okay.
I just need to make one point of clarification to the city council. It's 20,000 on those years that we're either hosting or going. It's not 20,000 in the budget every year. So just to clarify, 20,000 on years we're either hosting or going somewhere.
Yep. Okay, any other comments? No?
I
Yes.
agree with your comments. I think that it's important to have cultural exchanges, but it's more important to have economic development and be able to take advantage of these trips for more than just a mini break or a mini vacation. I think it would be a wonderful partnership. And we do have a lot of people that are connected to businesses there, and it just seems like a natural marriage. It really does.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is item C3, provide an update on the garage conversion amnesty permit program for single-family homes with unauthorized garage conversions.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Sam Chavez. I'm the Director of Community Services. So what I'm providing you this afternoon is an update to the garage conversion amnesty program. Part of the reason that we're here this evening is that there were some objectives that want to be met with this program, and that was to ensure that unpermitted garage conversions complied with health, safety, and minimum building standards. This would result in the validation of garage conversions, and also it would remove the non-conforming status on these homes, and thus allow us, the city, to issue permits for expansions and additions in the future. In doing so, ordinance number 3873 was adopted on April 16th of last year and established the amnesty program permit for these unauthorized garage conversions in existence prior to July 16th of 2024. So the program itself is 18 months in duration. So we're in month 17 of that 18 months. So as part of that application, they would be required to submit the application themselves, consent to the inspection, and the inspection would be limited to the converted area only. So we wouldn't look at a portion of the structure. If they required modifications or repairs, they would be given approximately 30 days, or if they needed extension, we could extend it more in order to bring that into compliance. And then upon compliance, then the permit would be issued, in other words, finalized, and at that point, they would no longer be non-conforming structures. So initially, when we started this back in July, approximately 1,393 single-family homes were visually identified with these garage conversions. Of those, 358 homes had permits issued to them, leaving a balance of 1,035 that still had either no permits issued or there were no records to support that a permit was ever issued for those conversions. So since then, we've had a total of 177 applications submitted. Of those 177, 128 permits were issued. To date, we have a total of 128 homes, or 13% of the 1,035 homes that achieve compliance. That's about a 13% compliance rate, leaving a balance of 907 units that are still in that state of non-conforming status, which is roughly about 88%. So some of the things that we tried as far as an outreach effort, of course, we created flyers both in English and Spanish. These were mailed out to all in all residential water bills. There were 2 mailings directly to residents with a known garage conversion. They were posted on the city's media channels and website. They were handed out with resident engagement at all city events. And lastly, they were hand-delivered to remaining homes of these known conversions. And of course, we published these flyers on the branch bulletin and branch review. So the next steps. This program terminates at the end of January. That would be January 31st of 2026 for those that have not applied for this amnesty program. So as of February 2026, all these remaining structures, 907 of them at this point, would be deemed as nonconforming and therefore fall under the nonconformity section of the comprehensive zoning ordinance. So we would follow through with notices of violation. Now, notices of violations are not citations or tickets. It's essentially a notice to let you know that you're not in compliance. The goal, of course, would be for compliance and not the punitive end of it, which would be the summons and whatever court action happens at that point. But our goal would be for compliance and should always be our goal for compliance. With that, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave this program with you, and I'm open for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Sam. Councilwoman Gonzalez?
Once we get to the point where they're not in compliance, are they going to end up getting fines eventually, or was that not decided yet?
Well, the standard operating procedure is to issue a notice of violation. That's the notice letting you know that you're not in compliance. So if they're not able to gain compliance, or they choose not to, then the next step so the next step in that code enforcement effort is the issuance of a summons. And that summons is basically what it means. It's a summons to appear in court. And then the court decides whether it's a fine or whatever that penalty may be.
Councilwoman Bennett?
Okay, I want to go back to what the ones that you have sent to. So go back a couple of slides. You can go back one.
Oh.
Speed demon, right there.
Okay.
Okay, so of the 907 homes that have remained non-conforming, are those renters or rental properties? Have we looked at that?
We haven't broken that down. The listing that we have, we went by property owner. So my assumption at this point, unless I start digging into those numbers, is that these are all owners of property.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not sending something to renters when it needs to be going to the owner.
Correct.
All right, thank
Right.
you.
Yeah, we typically send notices of violation to the property owner in lieu of the occupant.
Right.
Correct.
I had an incident a few weeks ago that it kept going to the renter for quite some time,
Okay.
honestly. And the owner did find out later, but there was some confusion in that. And so
Okay.
that's where I want to make certain that it's actually going to the owner, not the renter, because the renter will not always pass that on.
That's correct.
Thank you. I'm going to skip here. My mistake. This item was requested by Councilman Neal, and even though I wrote it down on the front here, I was making a note on the back, and so I didn't look, and I just automatically started at my left. So I want to go to Councilman Neal now. I apologize for not.
It's fine, Mayor. Thank you. I wanted to bring this forward so I can hear some feedback from my fellow council people, because I want to know what we're going to do at the end of this amnesty program from a council's perspective, as well as from what the city's plan. And I know you started to articulate some of those steps earlier, and so I'm just happy to listen for the moment and just try to get a sense of where this council wants to go in February, if anywhere. That's all.
Thank you for your understanding. Councilman Reed.
Just so I have a timeline correct, first step after the January 31st deadline is send a notification, correct?
We would send notices of the violation.
Notices of
Right,
violation.
that's correct.
And typically, what is the timeline between sending that notice and the summons being issued?
We would, in this particular case, I think we'd look at a typical notice of violation for, let's say, tall grass and weeds, it's typically 10 days. We would probably mimic what's in the program currently, which is 30 days in order to bring that structure into compliance.
Okay, because, I have to applaud you and your team for the amount of publicity, notification, everything that you've done regarding this issue, other than perhaps a few outliers when something might have gone to a renter versus the owner. It seems that there really is no excuse for the homeowner to not know at this point. We've reached out a number of times through a number of different media, not only generally but specifically, and like you said, to hand delivered to folks. So for someone to not act at this point, well, I don't want to, make it seem heartless, but there shouldn't be a reason for at least someone reaching out and, the individual homeowner reaching out to the city to find out what needs to be done in this case. And I know we have programs in place as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, where we could potentially provide economic assistance if they need to bring some things into order. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir, under the minor home repair program.
Right,
If
yeah.
they qualify.
Right,
Correct.
right. So there are potential options for them to get some assistance with it. So, given everything that we've done so far, it just seems to make sense to go with the plan that you have in place, send out the notices, in February, go with the 30 days and start going down that road. Sometimes you have to be a little bit more forceful with it, with individuals, and it seems that we've extinguished the use of the carrot, now we got to get the stick, so to speak. So that's what I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Viv Franco?
Thank you so much. 907 non-conforming, that's a lot. Do we have an idea by district, like where the majority of the violations can be found?
I would say predominantly it's probably either it's District 1 and District 2.
And on the homes that you have visited, are they aware that there is a minor home repair program? I know some of the families, and I know that sometimes it's overwhelming because things are cost prohibitive and, getting things up to code can cost a lot of money. Are they aware that there is an opportunity for them to be assisted with their conversion?
I know it's been out there. I think that may be part of our targeting kind of campaign, is that in addition to the fact that you may be in violation, also that there are programs to help you, if that's the issue.
Okay. I actually think I know a lot of the people in that district, in District 1 and 2, that probably would qualify, that have garages and may just feel overwhelmed and not know where to start. If there's anything that, I can do, and I'm sure I can speak for the rest of the council and make it, make a day of it, that could be beneficial. Thank you.
Just a couple of thoughts or comments here. These are just the ones that we know about, right? So it's possible there could be more than the 900.
There may be.
We just don't. This is just one we can visually see, right?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay, and it is 88% non-compliant. That's pretty high. I'm just wondering if council would be open to the idea of basically sending out a letter to those 900 people before they receive a notice of violation, basically informing them, hey, if you don't try to take care of this and apply for this amnesty, it's likely you might get a notice of violation, just as an extra carrot to say, hey, please do this if you don't want to get that violation. I just want to offer that out there. I don't know what the costs involved would be or the timeline would take to do that, but I just think that would be a little extra step up front before we start enforcing violations. Just that, there's that thought. And then, I guess finally, you said if this were to go on a summons to the court, do you know what options are available to the court? Would they just, can they dismiss the case? I mean, to what level can they, I don't know what the right word is here, but what can happen to them or what can be potentially told?
I think I may be able to address that question briefly.
Great.
Once it's in municipal court, although Sam's referring to it as a summons, the summons is effectively the equivalent of initiating a criminal case in our municipal court. The court really has limited authority, although the use of a municipal court system is the most efficient and sometimes the most effective way to cure violations, issues like this. But the court's authority is somewhat limited. I mean, it can convict somebody and enter a fine as a judgment, make them pay a fine, or it can dismiss a case. Sometimes the prosecutor has the ability to work out a creative solution that really involves something called deferred disposition, where you give them a certain period of time to come into compliance, and if they comply, then the case is dismissed. But convictions are for ordinance violations, not state law or traffic code violations. And so for a lot of people, especially if these were rental properties, in many cases, the owner may find it to be economically feasible to just pay the fine and go on about their business.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what are the limitations on the fines, if any?
It's going to be, depending on what our ordinances say, $500 to $2,000. More than likely, it's a $500 maximum, but I don't know. Sam can correct me on that if I'm wrong. But all they can really do is threaten them with the issuance of a fine or the imposition of a fine, and that's about it.
Okay, so they could be, worst case scenario, convicted of a $500 or $1,000 fine, whatever it says, and then in addition to that, they wouldn't be able to apply for additional permits or expansions
That is
in the
correct.
future until they're in compliance, right?
Yes,
Okay,
sir, that is correct.
Great, that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
So if a structure is deemed non-conforming, then what does that mean to a homeowner? If they want to do other work on their house, if they've already had some work done that was probably done without a permit, it might be likely that they're going to do more work without a permit. But should they come and apply for a permit, is there a way to flag that in our system that, oh, you're a non-conforming structure already, we can't issue one because you have an issue that needs to be taken care of?
We've already done that as far as flagging those that are non-conforming, so that when someone submits for a permit, we can issue a permit for, let's say, a fence. We can issue any permit related to the maintenance on that structure. Plumbing, electrical, water heaters, things like that, we can issue permits. We can't issue a permit to expand that non-conforming structure. So they can't add another bedroom to it. That's pretty much it as far as the types of permits that we can issue and permits that we can't issue.
Okay. And then what happens if somebody wants to sell their property? Is there some record of this filed with the county that would, almost like a lien, that would keep them from being able to sell their house until this situation was rectified?
From what I understand, the only note of that structure being non-conforming would be in the city's records.
Okay.
Now, there may be some sort of disclosure form that may need to be filled out with the transaction of the property that needs to be made by the seller to the buyer, but I'm not too familiar with that transaction process.
Okay. And then my last point, and very similar to what Councilman Neal just said, was I was thinking of a letter. If most of these outstanding issues are only in 2 council districts, then would it be possible for the council representative for each district to write a letter to their constituents? I mean, the city would do it and just send it out, but is that something that would be advisable for them as their representative to emphasize the importance of conformity or conforming, before the next step is taken?
I'm trying to think of the downfall to that, if there is any. I don't believe there is, but we have our attorney with us.
Legally, it's fine, as long as it's not regarded as election or campaign literature. But a notice of termination of the amnesty program and a reminder signed by a council member, I don't see any problems with that.
I think it would probably, in my mind, it might have a little more impact with a property owner. You know, some people get notices from the city and give it a cursory glance and then throw them away. Well, we're doing our due diligence, and this is just one more step in that process. And then should somebody, an owner, decide to further ignore the issue, then whatever you all do is your next step should be proceeded with. I don't know, you have thought?
I have another question. It's maybe legal, but is there anything that the city can do as part of the sale of the property to enforce it to become compliant with our ordinances and policies here in the city?
Not really. Anything that we could do would simply create potential liability exposure. This is right now a voluntary program. In the absence of the amnesty program, it's enforced compliance. Anything short of that, I'm not sure what else we can do.
I recall at one time, the city had to provide a certificate of occupancy upon the change of ownership. Are we not doing that anymore, or can we do that?
No, sir. We're no longer doing certificates of occupancy for single family. What we're doing is the permits being final as a last inspection on that structure.
That's common in most cities too, by the way.
Okay.
It's not that you can't do it for a residential property, but COs for residential properties are becoming rare nowadays.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Back to writing the letter, could we just hand deliver it instead so that it doesn't just end up in the pile of all the other mail they may just have? Is that okay to go and hand deliver and talk to them?
In that case, I would almost suggest that you have two. Have one that's mailed officially from the city. The city can say that it's mailed out, but then as you're making personal contact with your constituents, I think that would be fine to have a second copy of it. But I think official city communication probably needs to go through the mail.
That's making me nervous. Code enforcement more often than not, rather than issuing a citation to somebody in person and having them sign to appear in court, will do it by mail for a very specific reason. They're not really, they're code enforcement officers, they're not law enforcement officers. They don't carry guns and badges. And making personal contact face-to-face with homeowners under circumstances like this is often a very uncomfortable situation. So even if we had the staff, and I can't speak to that aspect of it administratively, but even if we had the staff to do something like that, that would be something that I'd be really cautious about.
So would it be possible to get a list for each of our districts? And then there's nothing that would stop us as a council person from just visiting our neighbor and knocking on their door and say, hey, you may be receiving a letter in the mail regarding this. Is that something you be okay with, or is that something you would advise against?
You could do that.
Okay.
There is a limitation under state law in connection with the expenditure of public funds for support or advocacy in favor of or against a political measure or a campaign. So long as you're not spending city money in support of a campaign for reelection, for
Right,
example, you kind of have an obligation to meet with your constituents, and so doing that
Yeah,
is.
that's what I was thinking. I feel like I have the right to go knock on their door and say, hey, this is going on in the city, and you might want to come in compliance, just in case you might be receiving a letter. That's it. I mean, is that something the council would be willing to do, or not want to take on, or do something
So,
different?
Sam, could you prepare a list by council district?
Yes, sir, I could.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, that's what I meant. I'm like, I get it. We can mail one, but then if we can also just stop by and be like, hey, just want to let you know this is happening,
Sure.
just for you to understand.
Very good.
So
Yes,
there is an election coming up in May, and District 2 is one of the elections that will be coming up. So we would want to be really careful about mixing things there. And also, there's nothing like being summoned to court to get people to be scared straight. So if you're summoned to court and that's like your last chance for the deferred disposition to go to court and say, you need to take care of this, I mean, that really is their last opportunity as far as I can see. So there would still be a chance, is the way I understand it. Is that correct?
Yep. Go ahead.
Two things. I like the positioning that you had mentioned in regards to making it a notification that this program's coming to an end. You need to act quickly before the actual notice comes. Second question I have is, from a liability standpoint, is there a potential issue with some residents being hand notified and others not?
Who gets to pick? The concern that I've expressed earlier is simply that, from a code enforcement official's perspective, they don't know who's behind the door or what's behind the door. And it's more of a safety concern for our officials than it is a liability concern. I'm only familiar with we've had one lawsuit associated with enforcement of the garage conversion issue. This immediately predated the adoption of the amnesty program. And that case is actually still pending. But it was abated at my request because I told the judge we have an amnesty program and this guy has an opportunity to avail himself of it. He hasn't yet. So in terms of liability exposure, it's more a question of safety for our employees than it is for liability.
I'm just thinking, if it comes back, hey, my neighbor got a hand-delivered letter, I did not,
Well, then your neighbor was the lucky one, or you're the lucky one.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
One last thing, I hate to keep harping on this, but could we do another follow-up of this, maybe in February or March, and just kind of see if we delivered our letters, if anybody more has responded, just to kind of...
Why don't we do a follow-up? How about the first meeting in February? Because that will be immediately after the period is expired,
Sure, I guess that's okay, yeah.
if that works.
I just want to make sure that they've had enough time to try to respond to our attempts, or sort of our last final attempts, give them some time to reply.
So let me ask, in the meantime, would you all like to see a breakdown of the property? Okay, yes. So let's try to amass that.
Okay.
Thank you. Very good. Moving on. Item C4, discuss an amendment to the Code of Ordinance related to parking regulations for oversized vehicles in residential areas.
Good afternoon again. Sam Chavez, Director of Community Services. So tonight is a continuation of a previous presentation. So this is the oversized vehicle regulations. What I've done is I kind of combed through the ordinance and I identified some key definitions of subjects that we use from a code enforcement standpoint when we go out and investigate or observe probable violations of parking on private property. So those are those, and there's a list of 6. The other thing is that I also went back and identified portions of other chapters in the Code of Ordinances that we, from a city, could also use or utilize in the enforcement of oversized vehicles. So that would be Chapter 82 of the Code of Ordinances. But that chapter really pertains to parking, anything that happens on the street. So it's nothing from a code enforcement standpoint that we can enforce, other than there is a small section within that code that allows us to address oversized vehicles, and it's based on weight. So that is the public portion of it, or the public side of the enforcement arm. And now we have the private property enforcement arm, which is predominantly all property maintenance codes. So under that, We can enforce parking on unimproved surfaces, maintenance of the improved surfaces, encroachments over sidewalks, encroachments into visibility easements with large vehicles, or with any vehicle, to be honest, or with anything. Parked vehicle obstruction, the number of vehicles parked on the property, and it's limited to 5. Whether or not the vehicle is covered with an appropriate tarp that's fitted for that vehicle. Vehicles for sale, abandoned, junked, inoperable vehicles, unscreened outside storage. So it's a combination of many little factors that we utilize when we're looking at code enforcement on private property. But the one that really pertains to large vehicles is really Chapter 82, and it's that one section that talks about parking any vehicles in excess of 10,000 pounds or a trailer. That is when we start really looking at the enforcement action. And then it's compounded if there's, let's say, materials on top of a trailer or a piece of equipment on top of a trailer. So at that point, we know we're exceeding 10,000 pounds. All right, so the proposed ordinance, and you've seen various versions of this, but it really defines vehicles and oversized vehicles. And these are borrowed from other sections of the Code of Ordinances so that we can at least be identical, so that in this section of the ordinance, which is the Property Maintenance Code, and the other sections of the ordinance. It prohibits oversized vehicles in residential districts. And again, it's based on weight and dimensional criteria. But it prohibits parking, storing vehicles in rear or side yards unless concealed from the right-of-way by either a permitted wall or a fence, landscaping, or a combination of both. But it also provides a 12-month grace period. So with some of these larger vehicles, it's a little harder than just, okay, I'm going to move them or I'm going to get rid of them. It's sale and deciding whether or not what they're going to do with these vehicles. The other thing that was also brought up was whether or not the proposed ordinance would impact House Bill 2464, which is the no-impact home-based business regulations. Based on my research, it doesn't appear that it would impact it. We're not restricting, we're not prohibiting those types of uses. So I think we're good there. So our intent would be to communicate any ordinance amendment through the branch bulletin and branch review, any social media platforms that we could utilize, and then also be proactive with residents when we do contact them out in the neighborhoods, when we have city events, pretty much just getting the word out, to let them know what to be aware of. So with that, I will leave this program in your hands, and of course, I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Sam. Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Sam. Just a couple of follow-ups. Is there any limitation here if they just move the trailer or RV regularly every 8 hours or anything, or would they still be considered in violation?
They would still be
violation.
considered in
Okay,
violation.
great. And then I'd just like to maybe suggest in the proposed ordinance you have there that we prohibits parking, storing vehicles in their rear or side yard unless accompanied. We put front yard too?
Yes, sir.
Is that something the council would be okay with not doing it in the front yard either? So, and then I guess the last thought I had is regarding people that have boats and RVs. Sometimes we'll bring them home for cleaning for a couple of days or over a weekend. How do we allow for that or address that so that they can have it, whether maybe it's a holiday period and they have a family out of town that brings an RV that they can stay for a couple of days? Is that what defined here in the ordinance already, or?
No, sir, it's not.
Is that something, it's something I'd like to see. I also like to know if the council has that same will or wish, but just a thought that I had.
Councilwoman Gonzalez?
Do we know roughly how many like RVs and boats are always here? Not just visiting, but?
We don't have a count, but I can tell you that out of 5,800 code cases that occurred from December 1st of last year to December 5th of this year, about 63 code cases were open related to oversized vehicles. Now, when they showed the oversized vehicles, the report doesn't show whether or not it was a trailer or an RV or a boat. It just says oversized vehicles. So what that means to me is that the vehicle is deemed to weigh more than 10,000 pounds. So we don't have that list of specifically identified structures.
And sorry, I know we talked about this before I was on council, but so is this going to affect those that, you know, they're yard workers and they bring their trailers home, even though they go out to work every day? Is that affecting them?
That will apply, if this is an act, well, it applies today. So if they exceed 10,000 pounds, yes, then they're in violation. And our code officers can identify the weight class based on, some trailers have tags on them, and it'll tell you what that weight class is. They can, if it doesn't have a tag, then they can identify it via their plates.
Councilman Bennett?
I think it's known, I'm not really supportive of this, but as far as the oversized vehicles, going back to 82, Quick Search pulls up that trucks and SUVs, basically a Hummer is going to be 9,000 to 10,000, a Ford Expedition Max is going to be 10,000, a Chevy Suburban is going to be 10,000, a Cadillac Escalade ESV is going to be 10,000. So if you're using that,
So that's the other portion of the ordinance that's in 58 that allows those types of personal vehicles to park on their properties.
okay, but what about on the streets?
That is also covered in Chapter 58, right?
Thank you.
Councilwoman, I'm just curious, where did you say a Chevy Suburban weighs 10,000 pounds?
It's a quick Google search.
Okay, I just did one right here. 5,600 to 6,000 is the average.
$9,000 to $10,000, or 10,000 pounds. Examples of vehicles over 10,000 pounds.
I'm just, because there's Suburbans all over the city, and Chevy is reporting,
Send it to you. It's a quick search, I can send it to you.
yeah, I'm not sure that I'm buying into that argument, but I would like to know and see it, because I'm seeing something that's half that. I haven't looked up Hummers yet, but I will, so, okay. Councilman Reed?
Do we have the results of the survey and how that applies to this topic? I'd like to see that. Additionally, I believe what you're saying is that those personal vehicles would not be impacted by this. It's more commercial and recreational vehicles
Yes, sir, that is correct.
that we're looking at. Yeah, because I think one of the issues that we have here, especially with trailers and trucks like that, it's, you have some that look great, and then you have some that don't, flat tires, haven't moved in years type of thing. So it seems it needs to be an all or nothing, because you can't go in, well, your vehicle looks like this, or your trailer is full of trash, it doesn't apply, or it's not in compliance, but this other trailer here that is pristine is fine. So we definitely have to make it has to be an all or nothing type thing. Going back to Councilman Neal's question in regards to temporary, I think if, number one, they'd have to be caught. But number two, it would be temporary, a day or two might be okay. But like you said, I don't want, someone's relatives from Nebraska coming out and living in their driveway for a week in an RV.
That's exactly what I was, I
You
think
know?
I think we're on the same page here.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah,
a
so-
day or two, whatever, they need to clean their boat for a day or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So that seems, that flexibility should be built into it.
Councilwoman Viv Franco.
Those are some really great points, and I agree as well. And I think when we were looking at, during the meetings of the task force, I think some cities, if you're going to be coming back from a fishing trip or whatever, I think you can notify the police department or something to that effect, that you'll be, cleaning the boat and you get a permit for, a day or 2 days or something like that. And that seems really reasonable. I think it's just people that are permanent, have these things permanently parked that probably are not even using them. I think that's where the major concern is. But Councilman Neal and Reed made excellent points. Thank you so much.
Okay. So to your question, yes, the results of the survey were put out. I'd have to go back and look and I find that, but we did send that to all of the council members. I'm trying to have one last wrap-up meeting on December 18th of the task force. And so that's very important. But again, and Councilwoman, I'm not picking on you, but I'm reading here, just doing a quick search myself. The electric Hummer pickup weighs over 9,000 pounds, but the gas models are substantially lighter, around 6,600 pounds. So, and Hummer is a pretty big vehicle. But to the point of the committee, I think we got, or the task force got very good input from task force members, most of which owned a boat, a camper, or an RV. And we were still able to get, I think, really good input and consensus from them. Everybody was in favor of nothing being in the front yard. There are boats that are been parked in the front yard. I've lived here 26 years. I can show you some homes where they've never moved. So that's part of the problem. They become part of a fixture of the house or yard art versus something that's used. But we talked about if somebody needed to bring their vehicle home for either loading, unloading, cleaning, whatnot, and they wouldn't even necessarily need a permit if you're going to do 48 hours. And that seemed to be acceptable length of time from the committee. So anyway, I'll resend that to you just so you have all that. There were a lot of comments associated with that, and I would like to see this get acted upon at some point, probably early January or so, but let's do our proper homework and take one more look at the survey findings, and then also we'll have the last input from the task force. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to read us into executive session now. We'll come back and finish the other items. Item D1, the City Council will convene into closed executive session pursuant to Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code. Consultation with the attorney to seek legal advice regarding matters related to Dallas area rapid transit, including but not limited to correspondence, programs, funding agreements, and any associated legal rights, obligations, or potential actions. Item D2, the City Council will convene in closed executive session pursuant to Section 551.087 of the Texas Government Code to discuss economic development incentives for Farmers Branch Project 2025.021. Item D3, the City Council will convene into closed executive session pursuant to Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, consultation with the attorney to seek legal advice regarding administrative investigations. And item D4, the City Council will convene into closed executive session pursuant to Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, personnel to discuss and consider submission of a request for qualifications for the city legal representation.
Mayor, may I pull D2 out of executive session?
Why don't we have initial discussion in executive, and then we can also add that D2 as an item to be discussed in regular. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we will do that, and then we will add item L5, which will relate to discussion of D2. Okay. All right. And with that, we will recess to the city manager's conference room. Thank you. See you back here at 6.